randoms keep getting jobs. Don't worry about it. I'm going to say it. I can't wait to say it. I love it. I love it. Go. We back. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the NotBland Show. I'm your host, Dujane Bland, and of course, you know, we're sponsored by Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. What a season it was, and we hope to have Elon on sometime soon to kind of talk about this season and how things went for them and what they have planned for 2025. Of course, you know, we're presented by SportsJourney.com and Everything Nitro. Be on the lookout, guys. Some good stuff coming up from that. Man, let's get into it. We're going to have fun. We're going to talk about the Top Fuel finale and the what if. What if certain things went the way a little different? What would it have looked like? We're going to talk about some of the stats and some of the cool stuff and how these top 8 drivers were able to get in, be able to have an opportunity right at the end there in Pomona to do their thing. We're going to have Dave W. on to do that, you know, the founder, owner of Drag Race Reference. And we're going to get into it right after this break.
Drag racing fans, check out Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. It's the free, family-friendly fantasy bracket game. Now, after final qualifying at every national event, you can fill out your bracket for all the pro classes.
It's free, easy to click on your picks. If you need some help, just hit the randomizer button to fill in the blanks. It's for fun, stay engaged, and pick your winners today.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. And, man, I know what you mean, Drag Race Mayhem. We are all going through withdrawals. As for myself, though, being that I do a lot of NFL stuff, I'm happy for the break. Just so much going on right now, trying to cover this NFC South and, you know, covering the Commanders, looking at other ball clubs as well as we get in the playoff race. It's just a lot going on. So loving the break here and welcome in Alani as well. Want to send out prayers and please keep one of our great listeners, you know, in your prayers there. Scott and his family having to go through a few things. Not gonna put his business in the street, but please keep them in your prayers. Well, Dave, what a Top Fuel season. And really, I don't think we could have asked for anything better as far as a dramatic finish, having 8 drivers involved in this finish. And I think one of the biggest surprises when you come into these top 8 was Tony. Quietly kind of lingering around, didn't have the best of year, but put himself in position late to have a shot.
No, he really did. I mean, he was pretty decent in the regular season, got himself set up, got a good seed going into the countdown, and really, surprisingly, they said they found something with the car, and they were really going to be a threat for the countdown, and they lived up to it. They came out there, they qualified right off the bat. They were second at Reading, lost second round to eventual champ Antron Brown, 5th at Charlotte, 2nd at St. Louis, picked up a win, 9th at Dallas, and then kind of fell apart after the win and the semifinal appearance at Dallas. Had a lot of momentum. You know, here comes the Sarge. He's going to be, you know, he's the winningest driver in Top Fuel history, the most championships in Top Fuel history. Is he going to make another epic comeback run to the top at the end of the year? And then it kind of fell apart at Vegas. Qualified 13th, gone first round, and we'll obviously see how his Pomona middle of the field qualifying and out first round at Pomona, but Vegas was really his only chance to get set up to have a shot going into Pomona, and he unfortunately got an outside shot because of it. But his Vegas first round loss to Steve Torrance and that poor qualifying effort really was kind of the nail in the coffin for him. He needed a lot of stuff to go his way to have one of those miracle moments at Pomona, and his season kind of had a glimmer of hope and then just fell apart.
Yeah, you look at he had about 38 rounds of competition and posted a 20-18 record, 52.6%, win percentage there. Seventh of the top 8 in the win percentage there. But like you said, when you look at the countdown and his average qualifying position around 7th, which is wild, being that the champ was averaging 9th.
Right.
Through 12 rounds, he was 7-5, but it was the regular season leading up to all of that kind of really put them behind the 8 ball. They weren't really a team that got a lot of session points decently in the countdown, but they weren't that good at getting, didn't have a lot of mission food points either. But I don't know if the special points really factored 100%, but definitely the performance. When you're at 52%, that's average. And when everybody else above you is above average, it makes it very difficult. You're asking for people to make drastic mistakes in order for you to have an opportunity.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of how it played out. I mean, he was starting to come on strong there. They were really, really picking it up at the end of the year. And, he always says, just give me a chance, put me in there and I'll fight for it. And I mean, they did everything they could to fight for it. And unfortunately just came up a little bit short. The car had glimmer of hope, a couple glimmers of hope here and there. But it just wasn't going out there, and it wasn't putting down the numbers like he needed to really get out there and make a run for it. But another great season. And again, I always say this every time that we get on the show, and we're living history, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we get to see the winningest top fuel driver in history win in the season. And I mean, that's not very often that you get to see. Matter of fact, in all 3 pro categories, the winningest driver in each category all won this year. Even though John Force didn't even complete anything after Richmond, still picked up a win. How often do you see that in other sports? Not very. Richard Petty ain't winning any NASCAR races anytime soon.
No.
These guys are out here and competing for wins, and they're still battling, and they're still relevant. And, I mean, not one that's going to go down as a banner year for Tony Schumacher, but they were in there, and they fought the fight, at least still 2 to go, and then it kind of came apart.
Yeah, I mean, he had 2 race wins this year. He was able to really – it's just the art of staying alive, right? And
right.
He did his best to try to stay alive in all of that. You look at above him, Steve Torrance, quietly through the regular season, it wasn't awful for him. I mean, he had a quietly decent season. It wasn't a dominant season, but he had a quiet but decent season.
Yeah, he really did. And, it's a shame to think that when you go through and you have 3 number 1 qualifiers, 1 win on the year, which it went almost a full calendar year between wins for him, that's a struggling season. But when you're talking about a 4-time champ coming out here, and it's got one of the best teams and one of the best groups out there, one of the best brain trusts out there, one of the best performing cars out there, and the results that they showed, it was really surprising. It really was. And, they seeded pretty decently in the countdown, and their countdown results just weren't there. It was just not a Steve Torrance-like season. They showed glimmers of hope. like I say, number one qualifiers, the one win, lost that final to Tony Schumacher, lost the U.S. Nationals final to Clay Millican, and two races that it seemingly looked like at times Steve was ahead and then just got passed. So I don't think it's a banner year for Steve Torrence in any stretch of the imagination for a team that is expected to be a top 5 or a top 3 finishing team to come in and finish this low in points is got to hurt.
Yeah. They had 48 rounds. They were 60.4%. And, they had a 47 of the bonus points, qualifying bonus points. That's 4th of 10, as far as the qualifying points go. So it really just shows that they were able to snag some much needed points in certain areas. But when it came down to getting those wins, round wins, especially in the countdown, that was pretty much the nail in the coffin for them, is not being able to turn those extra points that you're getting and then capitalizing on that on race day.
Yeah, 100%. And, like we've talked about, qualifying doesn't seem to really matter where you ended up in the field. You just had to be in the field. And I mean, really, they had a good shot. They still had a shot at Pomona. Yeah, it was an outside shot, but they had a shot. They could have had a better shot if Vegas turned out a little bit better against Clay Millican, which, I mean, that one basically they stole it. I mean, lose at Vegas on a hole shot to Clay Millican in the second round. Those extra points could have really, really helped him going in to Pomona. But I was probably one of many who thought, okay, it's going to be a throwdown session when they go out there and qualify second at Pomona with a 364. And then they come up against Gary Pritchett first round, former team member, and then just blow the tires off. And that was pretty much kind of like a poetic ending, way to end a dismal season for the Torrance team. And Steve basically right there. I mean, that was his what if. He had a chance to run across the other side of that ladder the way that the ladder was set up. But same thing with Tony Schumacher. These guys that ended up towards the bottom, Vegas was their setup race. They lost it in Vegas, and they lost it bigger in Pomona.
Yeah. It's a wild year, and there's a lot of speculation swirling about Steve and whether he'll return or not. There has been some movement, as we've seen from some of the crew guys that have been given their pink slips, I guess, but no real hardcore definitive no that he will not be there next year. So it will be interesting to see what changes happens with Capco and whether Steve is actually going to be taking time off or not. I'm hoping that he does return. Obviously the class is great with him in it. But then, I mean, it's going to be a complete logjam here with all these new cars, top fuel cars showing up. It's going to be a tough sled trying to get into these races here in 2025. So, a lot of speculation. I think a lot of it will work itself out sometime around PRI. That's usually when, the big part of silly season begins. There has been some things going on behind the scenes. But I think that's when we find out whether he returns or not.
Well, if it's a Jed Coughlin type retirement where it's, he's gone for a year or two to take care of business and comes on back with both guns blazing, I don't think it's if the rumors are true, it's going to be a short sabbatical, I would think. Yeah,
I think so. And Nicole, I do think there will be some big changes in the off season. And I think when you look at our next deal, and really below Tony Schumacher is Tony Stewart. And I think that's one team I think you will see some big changes from. You can't come out and race the way that you did the year before. And you kind of had some of the same issues with this team, right? They hit sometimes, and when they are on, they're on. And then when they're not, they're not. And more oftentimes at the wrong times when they need it, they need to come through. They need that number. They need that consistency against the top 8, top 7 cars. They're not able to produce that. And I think at some point, whether, coaching or anything else is based on performance. And I think there has to be some type of changes there, whether it's shuffling around, whether it's bringing another set of eyes in to kind of contribute and kind of help with things and maybe work some things and some things that they've been having difficulty without. I do not think you can continue to go down the same road that you've been going down over the last couple of years. Change must come.
No, and you look at that particular team in general, like you say, based on how they closed last year and the performance that they had, and then you go through this season where you've got 20 national events and you have 10 first-round losses, and you're out, half of them, you're out in the first round, and you go to the countdown and you're out in the first round in 4 to 6 races. I mean, you don't get that. And about the times that he was struggling to qualify, almost was a DNQ at Dallas on top of it. I mean, they were struggling hard when it counted the most.
Right. Yeah. And you can't have that. Memphis, the thing he really changed, not too much change with his team, other than the fact that the possibility could be that he is the only team that is out there, that there will be no Steve Torrence car at all. They will just have one. That is the scuttlebutt of it all. So, yes, not much change to the team other than the fact that, sure, some of Torrance's guys may go over there to assist in tuning that race car, but he could be the only person, Torrance, out there on the racetrack. Says, would it be strange to not have Steve in Top Fuel? Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping that whatever it is, if that is the case, that it's just something that I'm sure, and Nicole feels the same way. She doesn't think it's a retirement; it's just a sabbatical. So I'm hoping that it's business related and not health related. And hopefully, whatever he gets worked out, and he comes back in 2026, guns blazing.
Oh, yeah.
Drag Race Mayhem says Tony Stewart has 4th best average reaction time of this season. The driver wasn't the problem. No, he wasn't the problem at all. I think we got some stats on that with the reaction times. I'll have to comb through this thing here. We got a lot. We've got a lot and a lot of fun stuff here. I'm going to have to find that. Maybe you can find it before I do, but
of full-time teams, he was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th best out of the full-time racers with 070. Of all of the racers, he was looks like 7th best. Could be. I mean, some of it was a little bit weighted because obviously Gary Pritchett only had 2 rounds of eliminations with an 038 average.
Right.
Spencer Massey only had 1 round of elimination with an 053, so that pulls up his average. But
exactly.
And some of it's kind of skewed too, because like Josh Hart with an 055 average didn't have nearly as many elimination rounds as Tony Stewart did to hit that tree. But yeah, I mean, Tony was decent. He was definitely top half of the drivers on the reaction time average.
Right.
With an 075, a best of a 48, worst of a 216, which kind of killed his average. But it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, Tony was. But you can't say just that being the case, that the driver's not the problem, because one of the biggest things that the driver has to do is be consistent. You've got to do the same burnout. You've got to keep it in the groove. You got to keep the right amount of heat in the clutch. Yep. You got to be consistent with your staging. There's a lot of things that go into it that the driver does have more input on what kind of a run the car is going to make, more than just what kind of a light is he going to cut. So,
right. What's up, cousin? Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. You know, we're talking drag racing today. But thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. It's a lot more than just lining up and whacking the throttle. A lot more to that when it, involved in driving. Looking up at Clay Milligan, really had a shot to steal it. He really did. And they had several times this year where when they had the opportunity to steal, it smoked the tires. And in most biggest moments when they had to have it, must have, it did. And it wasn't often, but it was at those critical moments where they really could make a move and steal is where they had those mishaps. And that was unfortunate.
It really was. It's hard to say that it was a bad season overall for Clay.
Right.
I mean, I think that it's probably one of his better on the NHRA Tour. I mean, you can't have a bad season when you win the U.S. Nationals. Even if you went out of first round any other race. I mean, you won Indy and you went into Pomona with a shot at the championship. I think his biggest hurdles were that first round loss at St. Louis against Justin Ashley.
That was critical.
And again, on a hole shot, Justin's 373 beating Clay's 371, putting him on the trailer first round after Clay qualified fourth and Justin's in the bottom half of the field. And he treated him and he got the win. And then obviously same thing that happened at Pomona at the finals against Brittany Force in round 2. I mean, Clay was still in it. Clay could go rounds. If he would have had a little more cushion, I think in St. Louis, he could have finished a little higher in the point standings than what he ended up. But I mean, all in all, it wasn't a bad countdown for Clay. It was one of the better averages in the countdown than most of the drivers had. So he still had a pretty successful year. It just, when everybody is so even and evenly matched, when it comes time to go in rounds and you don't go rounds when you need to. I mean, he was in just as many countdown rounds as Justin Ashley and Sean Langdon. They were in 15 rounds of the countdown, which was second most out of all the drivers. And of his 15 rounds, 13 of them were against other drivers in the countdown. So he faced some stiff competition every time he came up to that starting line. And more often than not, they delivered. It just wasn't enough to close out the deal at the end.
Yeah. I think they were really starting to find their footing. The good thing is now they have a home run. They have a home run ball that they can go to pretty consistently. I believe they had they had 2 top speeds. And I believe one of them was, we have that stat. Where's it at? One of those, Clay was the third fastest all time with that 338.26 miles per hour. It ties the third fastest. I'm sure he tied Brittany Force.
That run at Sonoma really laid it out. And third fastest all time. It's not something that you really think about because it was just like, wow, 338. We see 340. We see 339 before. We've seen the funny cars really flying. But it's pretty amazing what that team is able to put down. And I think that going into next year, you got to keep them at the top of your list. And when it comes time to contenders.
Yeah. And Clay had the fastest 8th mile speed in eliminations at 2:99.40 in Pomona E1. He had the fastest speed qualifying in Sonoma Q3. That was a season best of 338.26. He had the fastest elimination speed in Charlotte in the final at 337.92 miles an hour. They were really, when they needed to put up home run numbers, they were able to do that pretty much at will this year. And that's something that I think in previous years that they've struggled with, trying to do some of the things that the top cars like, Brittany Force, Doug Coletta, at times Justin Ashley, at times Antron Brown have been doing. And that's kind of what kept them around in this thing to have that shot coming into Pomona.
Yeah, most definitely. The performance is there. Clay is there. Clay can drive the car. It's just those couple of hole shot losses that are going to go back and just sting real bad in the off season. But you know what? If he wants to be upset about it, he just got to look over and see that U.S. Nationals Wally sitting there on the shelf and go, you know what? This ain't too bad, which is probably sitting right on the mantle right next to all of his IHRA championships and 51 national event wins on that side of things too. So, the man definitely had a successful year. And, I'm trying to think just off of memory how many times in Clay's career on the NHRA side has he even been in championship contention this late into the season, let alone going into Pomona with a shot. So, that's why I say I feel like it's a career year for him and that team. And look out for big things in 2025. Everything stays together.
Said, who was ahead of Tony in full timers? Are you talking about?
In the reaction times.
Reaction times. Yeah.
Justin Ashley, Josh Hart, Antron Brown, and Sean Langdon were ahead of Tony.
Yeah. They're curious, but that means my list is wrong. It's easy to do. Like, some of us have a little bit extra, backdoor for stats. And when you're trying to do that off of, sometimes just the site and, the actual event site, sometimes they're not correct. I'll say sometimes, a lot of times they're not correct. It makes it very difficult for those of you who like to keep those types of stats. Yeah. Says Clay only had one win, but what a win it was. Definitely.
Yes, it was.
I mean, the most important win, right? The one that you want to have, absolutely, people trade championships for that thing. So, awesome to see him do that. Nicole says, did anyone do stats on which top fuel had the most blowups? Not really oil downs, but blowups. Oh man, that's a good one. And there were a lot of them, and they were big ones.
Oh yeah,
big ones.
That is not something that I've kept track of. So no.
Yeah. Clay would put up grubby Alan Johnson numbers. He was, and I do think this is something that will continue. It definitely helps with having Rick Ware, them being able to have some of the best parts necessary to be able to compete. But I also think that, Jimmo found his groove again. It took a while. I think he kind of lost a little bit of confidence, but he really found his groove again. And it showed up. Also having Nikki with him, having that comfort level and having that ability to bounce things off of someone that knows you pretty well, I think also is a combination that really helped this team. They really do have a good group of individuals who work on that car. They're very diligent, but I really do think Jimmo finding his confidence and then having that buddy with him to kind of, bounce ideas off of and really be in tune with really helped his acceleration and being able to put up those type of numbers.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd like to add, since we're talking about finding their groove back, moving on to Brittany Force next. David Grubnick towards the end of the year is another one who kind of found his groove and got his groove back. Some of the end of the year stats: low ET at 5 of the last 7, top speed at 6 of the last 8, number 1 qualifier at 5 of the last 7, second most points earned in the entire countdown alone, and most qualifying session points in the countdown by 9 over the next closest competitor. So they were really hitting their stride. And the sad thing about that for that team is the DNQ in Chicago, and obviously we know what happened with John at Richmond, so the team skipped going to Norwalk. Those couple of races, had they qualified, had they showed up to Norwalk, maybe gone some rounds, they could have caught basically enough points to maybe get 2 more spots higher in countdown seating and an extra 20 points in Brittany's pocket at that point to start the countdown with. They could have had a little bit closer and a little bit better shot than what they really ended up with a couple of more successful events during the regular season to kind of set them up for that. But when it came time to the end of the year, we were all wondering, well, where's Grubnick's setup? Where's, Brittany's low, usually low of all these sessions and puts up the big numbers. And well, they came out in force towards the end of the year. They really found what was ailing them. And really her biggest hurdles was the start of the countdown. The first round loss to Steve Torrance right off the gate in Reading. That just kind of set the seed, but it only got better from there.
Yeah, she was basically top 4 in the amount of rounds where she faced countdown drivers. And what's incredible in the countdown, they averaged third. And when we were talking about this and preparation for this show, and the fact that when you look at her season, it doesn't seem that great. You know what I mean? Right. But when you start getting into the numbers and really breaking things down, they really started to come on strong right when it mattered. It needed to happen a little bit earlier. Like you said, maybe if they had a few more points, getting a little bit higher seed coming in, that may have helped them out a lot. But absolutely impressive numbers that they had. And again, like you said, second most earned countdown points, 462 to Antron Brown, who is number 1 at 538 countdown points. That, and ahead of Justin Ashley, by the way, guys.
Right.
Who was pretty much had this thing tailored to where he just needed to win and it was his. And that says a lot about this team, who has to give them really good feeling ending the season the way that they did, and gives you a good feeling coming into next year that you guys can pick up right where you left off there. They kind of found their way back again after they were lost for a little bit.
Yeah, and I really think so. Where did it go wrong for them? Maybe a little bit higher seed, losing to Pedal Fest to Steve Torrance and Reading, that whole shot loss at Dallas to Tony Schumacher. That could have put a lot more points in their pocket. I really think since going into Pomona, once Antron or Sean or Justin, whoever it was, ended up making it to the semis, obviously that they're mathematically eliminated. I think that semifinal round against Antron might have been a little bit of a fluke. They might have been just trying to throw the kitchen sink at it just to see what would stick. And it shook and had to shut off. Pedaled at that point. You're not going to run around him anyway. But those were really her best chances. And, even still coming off picking up that win at Vegas first in 2 years for Brittany was great to see. They've got the momentum going. They were building it towards the end of the year. I think they got their tune-up back. They just got to get a little bit better in elimination rounds. They're killer in bonus points. They're killing it in qualifying points. They're killing it in position points. But when you're putting 20 points around or 30 in the finals, those are when you really need to shine the most. And the elimination rounds is where they struggled a little bit more so than some of the others.
Yeah. And, everybody talks about it. And, there's not a lot of people that have like exceptional reaction times. And 091 is her average. But, if you take away the worst and you take out you take that out, the average, her average is the 079. If you take that 510 out,
right,
as her worst.
And the 510 was on a single, so
yeah,
she wasn't really pushing that tree, but
no.
it still counts towards the average. But hey,
Exactly.
A best light of 035 for Brittany on the year. That's pretty good.
That's good. That's good. And it's right in there. Probably would be somewhere around top 5 if I'm grazing over this thing quickly.
Yep.
It'd be somewhere around top 5 in best reaction times, right in there with Doug Coletta. Maybe
not of the
6.
season, because I mean, you got some of these guys. Gary Pritchett had a 28, Justin Ashley had a 17,
right.
Hart had a 20, Antron a 37, 33, Tony Stewart had a 21, Clay had a 26. So it'd be top 10 or so at least for a best, but got to get that average up. Got to be out there and killing that tree against, because sooner or later you're going to end up against these guys, and they're going to put one of those lights against you, and you got to have something to respond with.
Exactly. Like we said, she faced 11 rounds where she faced countdown drivers, and that is a fourth most of those individuals who were a part of that. And you're going to have to bring it, because you know that the ones that you're likely facing are Antron's, Justin Ashley's, the Sean Langdons. You're going to have to step it up and be a little bit more consistent in that department, because you can't always rely on putting up the big number and outnumbering them, out ETing them every time. It just sometimes just doesn't work out. You can run fast and get hole shotted.
100%.
A very good season, and really kind of went south when they grenaded the tire. And he crossed the center line there. It seems like things that, if they could have finished it out, might have been a little bit more of a difference there with Sean Langdon. But he has to feel real good about Brian being back with him. They make a great team, and it showed again this season. I thought they would hit a few more home runs than they did. But for them to finish where they did and have that opportunity to basically control their own destiny, obviously they needed some help. But, that's pretty admirable for this team, because making a crew chief change is a big deal. It's almost like making a head coaching change, because that particular crew chief likes to do things a little bit differently. And fortunate enough for them, the car accepted what Brian Husen likes to do.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, that if you're looking at the season in a big picture, they had the most rounds of competition with 51. They really didn't falter too much throughout the regular season. A couple of times, you had a couple of rare first round losses. However, when the countdown came, they had no first round losses the entire countdown. They made it through first round, and that's not an easy feat when you are against a stacked field the way that you are. But I mean, they started the season strong. They came out swinging, winning the season opener, number 1 qualifier, won the Gator Nationals. Here we go. We're on a run. Second round at Pomona, right back at it at Phoenix. Second win, 2 wins in 3 races. This team started hot. We were curious to how they were going to carry the momentum through the year, and they did pretty decently. They were always towards the top. It looks like as you go through the entire season, even including the countdown, honestly, after Pomona, the 4th place finish that Sean ended up is the lowest in points that he had been all season. He had either been first, second, or third from Gainesville to Pomona. And it just, I wouldn't even say that blown tire fell apart, because I'm going to tell you that epic Q2, which should have been Q4 showing at Pomona, when you're outside the field looking in and go straight to, at the time, right at the top, and get into eliminations and set up the ladder the way that it did. Everything was played out basically to have you control your own destiny, and nobody saw that round 2 matchup with Justin Ashley and that thing just annihilating the tires and coasting through at 21 seconds. I mean, he just Went out there, blitzed it. It popped the supercharger. There goes the drive belt. Disconnects the throttle. You're just a sitting duck, and you're watching. I'm sorry, against Antron Brown, not Justin Ashley, at Pomona, and you're watching the season end. You're watching it going away because I just got to get by this round, and he didn't do it, and that's the only what if for that team is that's the run they need back. His second round, Pomona. Do you go to the other lane? Was it a mechanical failure or a tune-up issue? Don't really know. Usually, they always say if they smoke the tires that early in the run, something happened. There was a mechanical failure. It was unlikely that they were that aggressive at that point in time. But that was Sean Langdon's what if. I mean, and it's a shame that you end up fourth after all that, after such a successful career year. I guess I should say career year. 2013 was pretty good for him too, where he ended up sealing the deal with the Alanabi car. But that was his what if. That's the route that they want back so badly, and they'll be thinking about when we roll into Gainesville 2025.
Indeed, and they got a lot to look forward to. And Nicole, new car chief as well. For them to come out the way they did and finish the way they did, pretty impressive for that team. Justin Ashley, once again, I thought after he decided, because of religious reasons, to sit out, and they made one pass, they got in, and he wins the race, I'm thinking, all right, this got to be the year for him. You don't come out and go one and done, gone to the house, do your thing, no concern. you make the show and you come out and win the race. Like, that just doesn't happen. So I'm like, this is destiny. He's got to do it this time. And just little stuff. It's always the little stuff. And just come short this year. It's hard to be down about what he did this year because they were so good. But man, when he needed it came up. He came up short, and that just says a lot about how tight this championship race was coming down to Pomona.
This man's worst eliminations reaction time of the season was an 0.68, which puts him ahead of fifth place on the list of everybody else's average. His worst light of the year was better than everybody else's average light. And it's amazing to me that the two times that he needed to cut the light the most was when it really let him down. And take nothing. I mean, it was fate is about all you could say, because that team, like you said, I was on the same train that you were when you're talking about the Dallas situation. I'm like, man, you can't give up that many runs. This track is so tricky this weekend. The heat is out there. The sun's baking that track. Everybody's struggling with it. And you're going to come out there and be a one-shot wonder. Oh, and guess what? You qualified 12th and you get Antron Brown first round. Good luck. Number 1 and 2 into points first round. Oh, man, this is going to be a make or break your season. And he goes out there, and not only does he put him out, he wins the race. So I 100% agree with you on that. I was absolutely shocked. The biggest shocker, though, too, is when we're talking about 12th, if you look at the winners of the qualifying position of the winners in the countdown alone, 7th, 10th, 2nd, 12th, 1st, 12th. It didn't matter where you started. I mean, 12th place, it was second most. It had 3 wins on the season. Number 1 had 5 wins on the season. Number 12 had 3, and it was second most by any qualifying position all year long. It didn't matter where you were at in the field as long as you were in it.
I found that
interesting. Happened in the countdown. So that didn't matter where that team started. They were killer. Obviously, one of the biggest helps for them going into the countdown, he led and won the Mission Foods Challenge point standings. 14 points accrued there in the Mission Food standings, but they were 5th overall for the season in qualifying bonus points. And when you can do the actual just the countdown only. Same thing, 5th most in the season in bonus points there. So the stage was set. The top contenders that we're getting through now were all so close that honestly, all of their what ifs happen in Pomona. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And that first round that's the one that Justin wants back next, because he would have loved to have gone head to head with Sean Langdon in the second round to see who was going to win that championship. But I mean, just another solid year, and just unfortunately that much short from closing the deal.
Yeah. So unfortunate because he really had it in his hands. And that's just the name of the game, man, with drag racing. You know what I mean? It's unlike any other sport, really. You can be a hero and go to zero in a blink.
But you know what? You know, it almost leads us right into a number 2 driver.
Yeah.
You know, does Justin Ashley become the next Doug Coletta? He gets close, but how long is it going to take him to seal the deal? And, you know, Doug went a long time with a lot of close championship runs, a lot of race wins. And, you know, you never think of it at the time because you're always like, wait till next year. But hopefully that doesn't turn out to be the pattern for Justin. But another stellar year for Doug, and it ends up at another second place finish. You got to take the number 1 off the wing after 2024.
Yeah. You know, he had 5 number 1 qualifiers. He had 3 race wins. I believe he was right behind Justin Ashley with the most countdown points. Am I correct on that? Yeah. No, he was 5th. That belonged to Sean Langdon. Was behind Justin Ashley.
Well, he tied technically, so I guess they could both.
Yeah,
they had identical countdowns.
Yeah, so you know, it's amazing what a season makes, and some of the things that plagued them with the what I deemed as the Alan Johnson syndrome at times came to bite them. But the biggest thing was that rear end that let go. They had a few issues on that, and it's the little problems, I think. And I don't think I will say this. I don't think it was one of those instances where Allen overtuned. I really do think that they had mechanical issues because the thing just smoked the tires right at the hit. Not too far afterwards, and that was uncharacteristic of what that team was doing all weekend. I mean, they were pretty clean on in qualifying and very consistent. And then the most inopportune time, you'd have that tire smoke right at or close to the hit of the throttle. And those little things really were the catalyst in them finishing where they did.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, as we'll get to Antron Brown, a quick stat on Antron that we were going to drop that kind of correlates here. Antron Brown won 50% of the countdown races. He went 3 for 6, right?
Yeah.
Now look at Doug Coletta. Doug Coletta went 3 for 6 with first round losses, and the other 3 were runner-ups. So you were either out first round or you were in the finals, and that was Doug Coletta's countdown.
Feast or
and
famine.
For those of you who don't like the countdown and you don't like the Missing Foods Challenge and you don't like, you want your points counted organically, you know what? Doug Coletta was your season-long champion. You take those all out of the equation, he would have won the championship by 30 points over Antron Brown. He was, you take the countdown reset away, the Mission Foods countdown bonus points away, and Doug Coletta basically had the best overall season when it came to points earnings. And a lot of that was contributed to, if you look at the bonus points for the entire year for the qualifying session points, number 1, 61 points. He led that category right then and there. And if you want to compare it to Antron Brown, who was 6th overall, 40 points. So 21 of those 30 points that he would have beat Antron in the regular season or overall season were just from qualifying bonus points and session or position points alone. So pretty good year for the Coletta team. I mean, 10 low ET at the meets. You had 7 top speed at the meets. He had a 364 with a 0, which is tying for the 8th quickest all time, as well as low ET of the season. Round 2 at Pomona, and just, I mean, 300 miles an hour to the 8th mile on that qualifying pass. Second to do it, but still 300 to the 8th. Huge speed. Quickest 660 in eliminations with that 292. Quickest, obviously, 60-foot time. They had the Alan Johnson tune-up in that car. That car was not shy about running the numbers. It just needed a couple more win lights.
Yeah, it really did. And, when we look at our champion, Antron Brown, 6 race wins. He was very, very good in the countdown. And like you said, didn't have the most bonus points as far as qualifying bonus points. Right. And it really just came down to the fact that when they needed wins, they got them. And they basically won their way to a championship.
Yeah. Their biggest what if for this championship would have been, what if the tables would have turned in Dallas and Antron and Justin Ashley would have traded places, and Antron would have went on and won that race. He would have won 4 out of 6. There would have been no Top Fuel Championship picture going into Pomona. It would have been Antron and everybody else just trying to hang on. I mean, they came together. They had, flashes of consistency early in the year, but they would follow a race win with first round loss, then come back, do a semi. Another race win at Norwalk, goes out to Seattle, first round loss to Josh Hart down at Seattle. So they were just lacking the consistency that they seemed to finally put together when the countdown came around. And definitely by far, as you had mentioned already, most points out of all the Top Fuel drivers in the countdown at 538. And they went out there, they won the rounds, and they earned it. And they did it in eliminations, not with qualifying points, with only 6.
Yeah. 14-3 in 17 rounds in the countdown eliminations. He faced countdown drivers 13 times, second most to Clay Milliken, who had 13 as well. So they were up against it and going through the gauntlet a lot. But the winning percentage, especially in the countdown, really was the difference maker here. And like you said, it would have been very interesting to see if he had won Dallas, there may not have been an eight race deal. But with that said, we've had this Jekyll and Hyde that we're seeing in the NFL as well, where week to week, the best team doesn't win. And we saw a lot of that in the regular season and in the countdown. It just seemed like nobody wanted to seize it and really take it away and really just end it all when they needed to. And we had too many times where guys were just didn't hit the home run when they needed to take it away.
For sure. And the funny thing is we're always, hindsight's 2020. So we're always looking back at this going, duh, of course Antron won. Of course, like look at his season stats, look at his countdown stats. But that could have went just as easily the other way if Sean Langdon turned on that win light in the second round. And then we're having a whole different conversation right now. So it's funny to see how it finally turns out. When you look back at it and go, that makes a lot of sense. Statistically speaking, the numbers are there, but I mean, they still had to earn it when it came down to it. So, congrats to that whole team, and what a send off for Mark Oswald retiring as a co-crew chief out there with Brian Karate, to go out there and have a world championship. Congratulations to Antron on just another amazing season, doing it as a team owner. That's awesome too. And, that just bodes well. That team's probably going to be, just chomping at the bit to start 2025 and get out there and continue on this momentum and this swing. And just the biggest thing, like you've said, though, is evening out that consistency. Just take the up weeks and the down weeks. And again, Antron, 3 wins, 1 first-round loss, 2 second-round losses. We're just even, Doug Coletta, you flip it. 3 finals, 3 runner-ups, 3 first-round losses. We're just it's averaging out. We're just narrowing the window that you got to be good in. And that's it. That's what this countdown's all about. And it puts the pressure on from Q1 at Reading all the way to the final round at Pomona. And you got to be on your A game to win this championship. And that Matt O'Toole's team did.
And ladies and gentlemen, it's going to get tougher because we got more cars showing up outside of the cars that are showing up that are giving teams a run for their money, making it more difficult for these top teams to really have any sure shot. They have to come in and bring it for every round. 1 through 16, who makes the field now, there are no huckleberries involved in that 16-car field anymore. So I'm really, really looking forward to 2025 in Top Fuel. It is going to be a thorn in a lot of people's side with all these cars that will be showing up in Top Fuel. And, man, what a season for Antron Brown, and what a season for a lot of the top 8 there. There were 1796 scheduled Top Fuel passes in 2024, and we had 1772 Top Fuel passes executed. Weather played a part in a lot of those. Weather played a part in a few bonus points that may have been gotten in Pomona by a certain driver in Brittany Force as well.
Right.
But you know what? Overall, I think people got their money's worth when it comes down to Top Fuel. And it was extremely fun to really kind of peel back the onion, so to speak, and look at some of these what ifs and look at the stats and numbers, because there were some surprising ones. And I'm sure a lot of people who watched tonight had the same reaction we did when we finally looked at everything.
Yeah, some of these guys had better seasons than you realize. And the 2 sessions at Pomona that were lost, and then we lost 2 to the Hurricane back in St. Louis. So I mean, those were prime opportunities for people to earn, and I think it turned out great. And the only perhaps reason that Antron might be considered a surprise is really there was only one event after he won Norwalk. He was 4th, but otherwise he spent the season in 5th in points.
Yeah.
It was a Justin Ashley, Sean Langdon show for the most part. And those 2 drivers, speaking of them, raced that 4 to 6 countdown races head to head. And it was, all right, Justin, all right, Sean, where's it going to be? I'm kind of stuck up there and hold the chill.
Yeah. It was a fun season. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and, coming through this thing with us. I hope that we made it interesting for you. I want to thank Drag Race Reference for all the info that we're able to get and glean here. Really makes a full plate of, dessert as we look at the Top Fuel and how everything played out here with the top 8. Thank you guys for tuning in to the NotBland Show. We will be back with more NFL stuff here as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. A lot of teams only have 4 games left. So it's going to be very interesting how it all plays out as the NFC and AFC have started to tighten up a little bit. So looking forward to it. Again, thank you to our sponsor, Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. Thank you to Sports Journey. And thank you to you, the fans. Really appreciate what you guys do for us. And you could be doing anything else, but you're here with us for Sports Journey. I'm Dujane Bland. That's Dave W. And we'll see you on the next one.